Well, the final character here, and now this is a real gear shift. We're going to talk about Tyrion, right? Who's on the total opposite side of the world. So,
God.
and this one, right. So Tyrion, I mean, he's over in Essos doing his whole thing, right? So I'll just read the last little bit from the wiki here. So while aboard the Salazori Cohoran, Tyrion makes the acquaintance of Makoro, who sees visions in flames. Tyrion, Penny, and Jorah are captured by a Yunkai slaver and are brought by Yezanin Zaquas. They are instructed by his overseer on how to treat their new master. Tyrion and Penny are forced to perform a mock joust in the fighting pits of Meereen, not knowing that they were to be eaten by lions at the end of the show. Daenerys Targaryen, for whom the show was staged, learns of their impending fate and stops before the lions are released. After their new master dies of the blood flux, the trio escapes. Tyrion arranges for the three to join a sellsword company, the Second Sons, under the command of Brown Ben Plum, by promising the company the wealth of Casterly Rock. While the Sons' current contract is to fight Daenerys, Tyrion hopes to win them to her side. So, Nikki, Tyrion in Winterwater. Now, this was obviously like a total shift of gear from everybody else because this is all Essos and really what's going on with Daenerys. That's where we're at too. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about Tyrion up till now is he's worked out who Jon Connington and Aegon, he's worked out who Griff and young Griff are, and he was advising them pretty much. So I'll be interested to see what happens if he meets Daenerys and what he kind of divulges to her, because Daenerys is very much dead set on the throne being hers, as Aegon will be as well. So is Tyrion going to play the two off against each other? Because does he really care what happens to his sister at this point? That's what I want to know. Whose side is he going to be on? Because he's clearly not on the Lannister side. It is a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would argue. I think Tyrion at this point, and Tyrion's also like not necessarily going mad, but Tyrion's definitely having like a shift in character.
Yes,
certainly in A Dance with Dragons. And he's not necessarily like, I wouldn't say he's like full on evil, but he's definitely going darker and darker. Like it feels like that he's definitely going down this path. Ultimately, for me, Tyrion's gonna have to. I know that he's gonna have at least one more meetup with Cersei and Jaime, and I don't know how that's gonna go, but he definitely has sort of unfinished business with them. So he's gonna come over with Daenerys somehow. And for me, that tells me that Daenerys and Euron stuff probably isn't happening. Like, I don't think that like any stuff that could potentially happen with Euron, because I think he's sort of a block for Daenerys to get over to Westeros. Like, it seems like he's over there and they're going to meet up and do something. That might all just take place in Westeros. We could just get like a full-on crazy like mega war going on in King's Landing, and like the final thing where it's literally like Euron's there trying to take over, young Griff's there trying to take over, Cersei's trying to hold the fort down, Daenerys is there, and it's just like the war of every king imaginable, including the Night King. Why not? It's just in King's Landing, like everybody's fighting everybody, and whoever wins. It's just free for all. But so Tyrion, for me, has to come back over and has to have one final showdown with Cersei and Jaime, just for moments. It doesn't have to be a showdown, but just there's gonna be moments there. But is that the final book? Because I guess so much of it depends on, is Daenerys sailing back? Will Daenerys step on Westeros soil by the end of this book, by the middle of this book? Or does she just set sail and then she doesn't show up until the next book?
Yeah. So for me, I'm just thinking about Tyrion here. As you say, Matt, he's going to go have that confrontation. What is his role going to be? What can he offer? I mean, right now he's with Brown Ben Plum, and trying to convince him. I mean, maybe Brown Ben Plum's he's already done sort of has been working for Dany, right, or something. Explains why they switch sides, and then Tyrion's convincing him to come back over. Dany's out of the city. The Winds of Winter chapter, which we haven't really talked a lot about those in here. We just kind of stick right to what we have because they could be changing. But it is suggested that they are defending that city, and I think Dany will come back and reward those who did well or who worked in her service. I think if she were there and met Tyrion originally, it would be kind of like a no-go, maybe, just based upon name and all that kind of stuff. But if he does something and proves himself, and other members can kind of say, "Hey, Tyrion's done well here," and as Nikki was saying, like provides information about Jon Connington and young Griff and Aegon, all that kind of stuff. That could be really cool to see how, they're going to. It makes him more valuable. Because my other big thing is, I think Marwyn the Mage is on his way over to kind of be like an advisor to her, and so Tyrion likes Varys. He's been with Illyrio. He's actually seen quite a bit of this other big plot that's he's starting to get some of the pieces. The Syvas game is very important because he's a master player of that. And I think he's going to start to kind of figure a lot of this out, and he's going to be pro Dany. But then it's just like, can they do the ultimate pack, the ultimate merger of young Griff or Aegon and Dany? Is this possible? Can they pull this off? Or is she going to be so turned off by another marriage proposal, and she's just going to go full dragon and say, no, screw this, I'm doing my thing? And is Tyrion going to get caught up in that whole, I guess, whirlwind of trying to make this happen, seeing what's good for her, but she's so gone, like so far gone, maybe, that she just says, no, I'm going to come in and rule with fire and blood. She might just come in and do that. So I don't know how the whole Jaime / Cersei interaction is going to go, but I just see him being in the mix of all of that. And I think, we're not going to get like a Jon Snow, Dany kind of thing necessarily. That kind of stuff.
I don't think so.
No.
That's just show stuff right there. So that's where I think like maybe she does have someone who, if it's this young Griff character, but if they've deceived her in some way, right? If they sold her to the Dothraki, they did not give her. They said they were going to give Viserys this army, but they also sent Viserys. He went with Khal Drogo, and secretly Illyrio had another Targaryen that he didn't tell her about. You know what I mean? Like this could break down either way. It could be very fracturing, actually, too, just depending on how they present this information. Like Jon Connington, all this stuff. That's going to be really, really tough for Dany to hear. In the show, there's this whole bit where when she learns that people like Jon Snow more than her, look at that. I'm an imposter. I'm whatever. They're propping him up. And now young Griff is already on my turf trying to go after my throne. I don't know that it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to shake out. I think that would kind of maybe be upsetting for her. I don't know. Any thoughts on that stuff, Nikki? Just
that's, I think, like you say, that's what it's going to come down to, how Dany reacts to learning about Aegon, because I think she mentions him in earlier books, and talks about like, I probably would have married him if I didn't marry Viserys. So is that going to be suggested to her, and how receptive is she going to be to that? Because like you say, how is she going to react to, hang on, so you guys all knew about this and you never said anything. You just let me go off and do this. And now you're saying that the throne isn't even mine. So I think what Tyrion does is going to be very heavily dependent on how Daenerys reacts to learning all this information, that she's not the last Targaryen and not even the real heir, technically. But is Tyrion going to play those two off against each other, or is he going to sort of suggest some kind of union between the two? That's where I can see him going, to then eventually come back to Westeros to have that interaction with Jaime and Cersei.
It could be interesting because I had to look up some history on the Second Sons, because obviously they're not the Golden Company, but because that's, I think, the first sort of company, sellsword company we think of, and then of course their ties to the Blackfires and all that stuff. But the Second Sons, Egg Bittersteel did serve with them for a bit before he left to found the Golden Company. Oberyn Martell served with them for a little bit. It's kind of interesting, really. However, I'm kind of thinking maybe, what if Tyrion learns about like more of the sort of Blackfire lineage that's tied to the Golden Company. And then he begins to piece together, wait. Maybe young Griff isn't actually the son of Rhaegar. Maybe he's a false prince. So then that could tie a few things together. Tyrion could know he's false and pretend to tell Dany, or this could be how Dany learns kind of the idea through Tyrion that young Griff isn't the real deal. Maybe the Mummer's dragon, right? Which is part of her prophecy. And so you could get on that. And then Tyrion is the one who sort of advises her on this. And he could lie to her and tell her like, hey, no, he's the real deal. Maybe her and Griff, and he proposes this marriage. Then maybe young Griff is the one who betrays her for love. So there's definitely some ways that Tyrion could actually be that sort of that hinge in a handful of those ideas and theories. I can see as searching now.
Well,
I can see the screens, the in his eyes.
Because you bring up a really cool point that the historical like historically you got the Tattered Prince connected, you've got Oberyn you just mentioned, Dorne, and then Bittersteel was there and then founded the Golden Company. Right. So it's this offshoot from the Second Sons, and they actually have kind of a bitter not opinion, like they almost jealous of the Golden Company.
Because they're not as good.
They're competing, they're kind of competing. So that will be interesting to see if she gets what she looks like she's going to get. Like Dany has the Second Sons, as you said, and then the Golden Company now belong to or are working for young Griff, Aegon. That's going to be interesting. It's maybe something that George is doing symbolically or trying to hide clues in there as to what's going to happen. And you said a good word is hinge, that like Tyrion, it could hinge this either way, right? He could either bring it together, bring it apart. Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, I think who's the only, is there any other Lannister left besides Lancel? I just think he's kind of gonna, I don't know. He's
screw Lancel.
He's probably gonna die.
He's not in a good way.
he's just probably gonna die. That's where we're at on that. So cool. Okay. Did anybody have any final thoughts on any Lannisters? Anything else we wanted to dive into? Ez, Nikki, anything?
I don't think so. I think it's like you guys have said. I think the problem is it's just so many different ways it could go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just happy, Matt, that we have a Lannister loyalist here among us who is pushing for their arc, because I did what George wanted us to do, which was to hate them. Right. Mm-hmm. And then now through Jaime and Tyrion, I'm like, let's go a little bit. You know what I mean? He does such a good job of that. I'm like, I hate these guys. Hate them. And then right away, I'm a little bit of me is like, well, maybe that Tyrion guy's not too bad. And then
Tyrion's great.
Right. I just, what an author wants to take you on that journey. I totally bought into, and he totally did that. It's perfect, because Jaime later on, we're like, you know what? Actually, I know you pushed Bran out that window, but I'm in.
Jaime won for me, because I watched the show and then I dove back into the books. But Jaime 1 of A Storm of Swords was where I fell in love with the books, because first of all, A Storm of Swords, I don't know, it's pretty much widely considered to be the best book in the series. I think it is. Our good friend Sir Jimmy, who runs a just fantasy book thing, he says is like his favorite book of all time. He says it's like an absolute god tier sort of like fantasy book, because for me, the second you dive into A Storm of Swords and it starts with Jaime, this character who's been sort of off screens, who's been totally portrayed as a villain the entire time up to it, and then you get like his first chapter, it's like, oh man, this is just so good.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Go ahead.
Just real quick, it's a good book. And just before we let Nikki go, I wanted to ask her just a couple of questions. I know you're probably like, guys, when can we take a pee break here? Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh my god. But anyways, real quick. So, do you have a favorite character? Like out of the whole series, is there one? I know that we've mentioned Lannisters. Is there one of them in particular? And then also, is there any not that we have to dive into the theory or anything at all, but like, are there any theories or predictions that you've heard or read or come across or that your own that you're really like, I really like this idea or whatever? Because for me, one of my favorites has always been Lady Stoneheart, Beric Dondarrion, the Brotherhood Without Banners, all that I've been fascinated by that piece, and so I really like it. And anytime I get like a Lady Stoneheart theory, I'm into it. I wanna like dive down that a bit more. Everyone loves Jon Snow, whatever, you
Right.
know. Come on.
Yeah.
So
Jamie's my favorite character for the exact reasons that you guys have just outlined. You start off hating him because he is just he doesn't have his own point of view chapters. You are seeing him through the eyes of the good guys. And then when you start to hear his narrative and you're like, oh God, right. Okay. What you did was not okay, but I kind of get it now. Nothing he's ever done is ever sort of self-centered. He's always acting in the interest of other people. He's never really done anything for his own self-interests, and that's really interesting to look at for someone who's perceived to be a villain. I will say I wasn't a massive fan of Tywin in the books. I think he was just very much that sort of ruthless military sort of character. The minute Charles Dance came on screen, that was it. Like Tywin became my favorite immediately. And it just changed the way that I looked at him in the book. So Jamie and Tywin, definitely. If mad theories, yeah, okay.
I know on the spot, kind of, but
yeah, no, it's cool. I wonder, is Lady Stoneheart going to be the one to resurrect Jon Snow?
Oh,
because
yeah,
never done that one before.
Yeah,
Rob named him as his heir. So at this point, I mean, I suppose she will know that Sansa's alive, whether she believes it or not. She's desperate, and she, is she going to go up to Castle Black to kind of? Is there a way that she can get Jon Snow? Find out that he's dead. She has the power with the Brotherhood to resurrect him. Is it going to be her fulfilling Rob's final order? If that makes sense.
Wow.
Wow. So for real quick.
So clearly Nikki's coming. So clearly Nikki's coming back at some point, so we can dive down that theory. Ez is
the kiss of fire, kiss of life.
Right. Yep. One of the things we joke about is that Ez always brings up, we call it back to Lady Stoneheart because he views her as like the key to everything. Like,
it's super important, and it, like you said, it's a really cool thing. I mean, Melisandre, if she doesn't, or there's dissuaded in some way, or gets moved off of the. Who knows? They put them on ice. I mean, the ice preserves, and then, you bring down this life kiss, this whatever that Beric gave to her. By God, and they did that whole thing with Beric Dondarrion in the show. They took him as far as the wall. So who knows? Maybe that is something, an arc that Lady Stoneheart goes down, or I don't know. That's brill.
There's just too much. Yeah. In Kat's chapters, especially when she talks about how much she dislikes Jon Snow, there's just too much of that. It's talked about too much for someone that she shouldn't really care about. She just has this loathing, and her objection when Rob said, "I'm going to legitimize him. He's Jon Stark now, and he is my heir." And she, she didn't like it. She wasn't going to, tell the king no in front of all his men. I just think that would be perfect if it was her.
It would
to be the one to do it.
God, it would.
Awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, Nikki, but thank you for joining us. Seriously, thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we will definitely have to bring you back on because I really want to dive down that Lady Stoneheart theory, and I'm sure Ez does because he's a Lady Stoneheart loyalist. And so, all right. So everybody go check out her TikTok. It is Kale, as in the like Kale
the vegetable.
There's the word I was looking for. You can tell how many vegetables I eat when I can't even remember the word. Kale EC, where there's an underscore after Kale. So thank you so much again. Everybody go check her out. You can follow Ez and I at Super Games Bros and at Womprat_2M. So as always, we want to thank you guys for playing the Game of Thrones. I don't know what we're going to be discussing next time. Hopefully the House of the Dragon Super Bowl commercial. Let's go. This episode will be coming out the Sunday after the Super Bowl. on the podcast.
Well, we
So
probably have already covered it.
Hopefully, well, maybe, who knows? But
knows?
hopefully Ezra's Bengals get a win tonight, you know?
Yeah,
So
thank man.
just
appreciate
gotta throw that out there, man. I'm rooting for you.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, guys, as always, I want to thank you for watching. For those of you who's watching on YouTube, thank you for listening. We will see you next time. And remember that winter is coming.